Hello, I'm Jeff Romanchuk. My son Luke was born in 1986 and diagnosed with what his psychologist at the time called classic autism in early 1990. Since this was 2 years after the movie Rain Man came out, people would invariably ask us what his savant skill was. And my wife would often reply, driving his parents crazy. From 1987 until 1989, Luke had been saying 3 and 4 word sentences and hitting his pediatric milestones. And all of that kind of stopped abruptly in early 1990. And that's the first time my wife and I went looking for answers. Our daughter Kate was born in 1991. And the main reason my wife and I were so glad to have a girl is that at that time, 4 in 5 of those diagnosed with autism were boys. But autism doesn't care what the odds are. She was never as verbal or as social as her brother was, and was diagnosed with autism before she was 2.5. In the mid-1990s, the Autism Society of America put the rate of autism at 4 in 10,000 births. Most recently, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention put this rate at 1 in 59 births. An increase from 1 in 2,500 to 1 in 59 in only 25 years warrants concern. But my main point is that this perceived increase deserves to be challenged first. My contention is there are 3 main factors contributing to autism's rise in the United States and worldwide. The main reason is that in the past 25 years, the definition of autism has been increasingly broadened to include a broad range of disabilities and functionality. But the concurrent drop in mental retardation diagnoses also contributed to the increase in the autism rate, as did what autism etiologies were being researched year to year. While this full spectrum of disabilities is useful for helping those with the disability get access to services, it all but destroys the idea of tracking the spread or growth of what used to be called classic autism. Further complicating the view of a true increase in autism rates is Charles Harts' point that between the 1970s and the 1990s, school psychologists tended to flip the use of the terms mental retardation and autism. Especially for those at the lower end of the ability spectrum, autism's traits do mirror those of mental retardation. And when you consider that both are behaviorally diagnosed, I can understand Hart's point. Autism was still mostly unknown in the 1970s, but parents and educators thought they understood mental retardation. By the 1990s, post-Rain Man, autism was becoming familiar, and mentally retarded became the diagnosis that no parent wants to hear. In fact, its rates between then and now have actually dropped. So my call to action is that when you hear of autism prevalence rates increasing, you'll think, is this the same disability being diagnosed year to year and place to place? Consider that the spectrum causes a more muddled, not a more accurate number. The same has always been true for causes of autism. In 1997 and 1998, I did research into all the causes of autism that were being researched from the time the word was coined in the 1940s through the first 50 years. As is still true today, the neurological causations have always been researched the most. However, in the early years, psychological causations were the second most researched worldwide. Genetic causations were the third most researched, and allergy, environmental, autoimmune causations were the least researched at that time. Now, genetic etiologies are the second most researched. The autoimmune triggers for autism are third, and the psychological causations have all but dropped off the research radar. The autoimmune studies didn't begin to appear until the mid-1960s, and the psychological causations have morphed over the years from the early years implicating parents who were distant or at best uneven in their parenting skills, to in more recent years likening autism to, or childhood autism to adult schizophrenia. For this parent, the perceived increase in prevalence has more to do with how autism is now defined as a spectrum, the mental retardation label falling out of favor, and the variety of etiologies of autism that have been researched and continue to be researched. Thank you.